Hey guys, what up? It's Jack and welcome back to another video. So yesterday I was talking about, in yesterday's video, I was talking about how, is XDefiant going to possibly inspire bringing back a few legendary players? And a few of those legendary players that I was talking about was the Marca J and Ronaldinho and all that good stuff. So after that, I actually decided to go at Ron's channel, make a little pit stop at Ron's channel, and I watched his latest video, which kind of inspired this one that you're seeing before you today. I'm even going to play a little clip from his video so that way you guys can get an understanding from the man's words himself. But basically, in this video, I want to talk about how XDefiant needs to continue to be its own thing. In other words, the less like COD it is, the better it will be for the game in the long run. Because, well, I've even made a video, I believe, in the past, talking about like a kill streak system, because everybody and their mother was talking about how XDefiant, well, a lot of people in comment section of a lot of other videos were talking about how kill streaks like are a thing in COD, or excuse me, kill streaks need to be a thing in XDefiant, or XDefiant needs kill streaks or whatnot. And I'm here to tell you that, well, XDefiant actually does not need kill streaks, and if it does have something, it needs to be something completely different and inspired by its own identity as opposed to inspired by another game. Because at the end of the day, the more original XDefiant is, the better. I mean, people are already making comparisons to Call of Duty from XDefiant because, quite frankly, there's nothing wrong about that either. I mean, it's as soon as we saw footage of XDefiant, we were like, holy crap, this is just like Call of Duty, or this is Call of Duty or whatnot. It's one of the reasons why they took the Tom Clancy's name out of it. It was originally called Tom Clancy's XDefiant, but then they just named it XDefiant after that, especially after the backlash, because they're like, well, this is not a Tom Clancy game. This is Call of Duty. This is not Tom Clancy, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, the game is also not trying to be like Call of Duty. So, I mean, of course, there's going to be similarities, and therefore, since there are similarities, there's going to be comparisons. But what XDefiant actually needs to do if it really wants to preserve itself longevity-wise from a development standpoint is to continue to be its own game. So basically in the clip that I'm going to play for you in Ron's latest video that was made 4 years ago, just before the release of Modern Warfare 2019, I can tell you that basically what he's trying to say, and again, I'm paraphrasing here, is that COD needs to go forward. And he basically goes and talks about how the popularity of COD started and what actually started causing problems from a development standpoint and all that kind of stuff. And I found it very interesting, and I'm like, you know what? Yeah, the man has a point. Like for instance, if COD wants to preserve itself, it needs to keep moving forward in terms of, like not going to the past. And I figured right now is also just happens to be the perfect time to talk about it, because Modern Warfare 3, the new Modern Warfare 3, is basically reliant on the past because of the maps and all that stuff. And, well, the rest is history. For those of you guys that have the game and that are playing the game, you guys can tell me how you feel about that aspect. But we know we've already talked about what's ruining that game. But from just a design standpoint, I think there's just got to be more to it. But anyway, I'm going to play the clip from Ron here, so you're going to be listening to his beautiful voice for like the next few minutes or so. And then I will come back and continue to finish off my commentary. So Ron, take it away, my man.
I think a more fair or accurate assessment of COD would be that it's always been filled with trash. But the reason we were able to play it for so long back then is because, well, you know how people say COD used to be a year-long game, and nowadays it dies within the first month or two of release. The reason we were able to play it for almost an entire year at a time back then was it was just a simple matter of the good outweighing the bad. And that undeniable good that COD brought to the table back then was just its overall fluid feel and fast-paced gameplay. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, which I very well might be, because I wasn't really too experienced with other shooters back when I was first getting into COD, but I'm pretty sure Call of Duty was the very first game to provide 60 FPS gameplay, which at that time for consoles was huge. No other game was doing that. And so that FPS, that engine, the overall fluid movement mechanics that COD had, it made you feel like a super soldier. It was insanely addicting. It was like a drug, and that drug just numbed us to all the bullshit that was in the gameplay. It didn't numb us completely, obviously, because there's still plenty of people pointing out the bullshit and complaining about it, clearly, but it numbed us just enough to keep playing and just plow through all the bullshit and play all year. But now, 10 years later, that addiction has understandably worn off. Other games, other series have come out that provide their own fluid gameplay that can rival COD. PC Master Race is much more prevalent nowadays, and over there you can experience anywhere up to 144 through 240 plus FPS. So that fluidity that COD brought to the table back then, it's not special anymore. It's just not enough to hook people in and keep them hooked in. And because of that, we're just more sensitive and aware to all the bullshit that's in COD nowadays. Now, granted, I definitely think COD has gotten worse. I don't think anybody can make a strong argument against that. When you take a look at current CODs and their launch day content and compare them to past CODs, it's pretty clear they're releasing unfinished games. And I don't even have to go into details about how microtransactions are making the series worse. But let's just imagine that a new COD releases and there's no microtransactions and the launch day content rivals the launch day content of all the past CODs. None of that matters. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, a good amount of maps and guns and modes and just lobby leaderboards and all kinds of features and a lack of microtransactions, none of that truly matters if it's not supported or backed by enticing gameplay. We would just go back to square one and the community would be filled with complaints of how COD is just the same boring shit. So that's why I just can't agree with the notion that COD was so great back then and we need to go back. Like, no, man, we need to go forward. If COD wants to be the most popular shooter again and it wants to be a year-long game, we have to move forward and leave the past behind. They need to bring change, gameplay-wise, first and foremost, that's as groundbreaking and addicting as the fluidity that COD brought way back in 2007. You know, that's when the whole multiplayer hype train started.
So yeah, thank you, Ron, for that insightful commentary and viewpoint. Now, obviously, some of you guys are going to agree, and some of you guys are going to disagree, because nostalgia really is something, and it is something that we can't ignore, especially when it comes to certain games. I mean, hell, I've been gaming for going on 32 years now, and I can tell you 100% that nostalgia is definitely a thing, and it's not just limited to Call of Duty and all that stuff. But at the end of the day, Ron certainly has a point to where things need to actually go forward and there needs to be change. Now, unfortunately, the problem is that the kind of change that they've been giving us is obviously just not the way to go in terms of this franchise. Some people will agree with that and some people will disagree with that. Some people will say that the whole Battle Royale thing was a good thing, and some people will agree that in terms of the direction that the multiplayer has been heading is actually in a good direction, but at the same time, from everything that what I've seen and what I read, and on top of that, you know, the numbers don't lie as well, is actually the wrong. Like, the multiplayer has not been going in the right direction. As a matter of fact, one of you guys was quick to remind me, and this is absolutely true, in the comment section that, what's it called? COD Mobile makes the most money, right? Out of all iterations of this Call of Duty juggernaut, so to speak. Call of Duty Mobile makes the most money, and that's because most people are playing on those, and it's because everybody's got access to a cell phone and all that stuff. I think I even saw an Uber, at one of my jobs, an Uber driver came by and he was waiting for his order, and I think he was playing COD Mobile on his phone while he was waiting, and I'm not kidding when I say that. So it's very interesting because it kind of, like, because when you look at COD Mobile is classic Call of Duty, and it's also popular, and it doesn't have SBMM, at least to my knowledge it doesn't, and all these other things. So you're like, it kind of almost goes against what Ron is saying, but at the same time, I'm sure you guys know what I'm talking about. I'm sure you guys can understand exactly where this message kind of gets a little confusing, because on one hand, it's like, yes, we need change, but on the other hand, it's like, no, we don't need change. So I think it really kind of depends on the type of change and where you implement it. Like Ron said, back in the day, you know, that 60 FPS was something that helped draw people in, and then COD basically, you know, made its own identity through its own flavor. But again, one of the things that made COD so great, though, was at the same time that it did have its bullshit, but after a while, that bullshit started turning into, like, it went from fun to aggravating, so to speak. Now, for some people, it always remained fun, because that's part of what the formula is to them. And at the same time, for other people, it was just aggravating. So this is where the confusing thing goes. And this is where XDefiant comes in. XDefiant, if you think about it, is trying to be XDefiant is, I mean, yes, when you look at XDefiant, it's like, how can you not make Call of Duty comparisons? Absolutely, you're right. But at the same time, with those differences, that's the kind of fine line that XDefiant is actually trying to walk, so to speak. And it's very difficult. From a design standpoint, it's very difficult. Even from a sales standpoint, it's very difficult because you're going to have to draw a new audience. You're going to have to bring something to the table that is familiar but yet different. And, you know, it's one thing to have an idea, but making that idea come to fruition is a whole other thing to basically try to tackle and try to get control of. It's very difficult to make that idea come to fruition because not just from a design standpoint, but at the same time, it's like, okay, how is it going to be received? That's something that I'm sure developers are always asking themselves, like if I were to play this game, would I enjoy it? How similar or how different can I be from this game to that game? So whatever XDefiant ends up doing, it needs to be different than what we're getting with Call of Duty. It needs to be its own thing, and it needs to continue to be its own thing. If XDefiant, like let's say 6 months after the game's release, it starts to be more and more like COD, I think that to a certain degree, whether it's for less of a degree or a more degree, it's going to take away from the special aspect of what XDefiant is, and therefore in the long run the game itself is going to it's going to pay the price in a similar way to COD. And the game doesn't have to be as big as COD in order to, you know, go through what COD is going through. It's simple as that. So I think this could easily be something that could be very two-sided or whatnot, but and it is, again, like I said, it is a hard line to walk, but XDefiant needs to continue to be XDefiant, and it needs to continue to do what it is trying to do, and to be different, and have its own identity, or else in the long run it's just going to be repeating the same steps that Call of Duty's been repeating. And do we want that? I think I can speak for all of us, or the majority of us, when I say no. You know, we want the game to survive, and the way it can do that is to continue to do its own thing without 100% mimicking what that game is doing. I mean, hell, even COD has even mimicked Fortnite to a lot of degrees, and in a lot of ways it did good things, but at the same time in a lot of ways it did bad things in the long run in that aspect. But anyway, that's all I got for this one. I'm out of time. I might have even gone a little bit over time, so let me know down in the comment section what you guys think and what your opinions are. I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time to watch and or listen, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.